Thank you so much. And now we're joined by Nick Lorensen from SB Nation's Mid-Major Madness. I think out of all of the people out there who are tuned into the world of mid-major basketball, it's got to be you.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. I try my hardest to get all those conferences down, learn about all these teams. It's a tough task, but I work on it.
What conference is the toughest to really sink your teeth into?
The Southland. They don't have anyone who covers that league, and I mean, I think they are the worst conference on KenPom right now, so they're just tough to watch. But as the year goes on, I think I know like 2 players in the league. It's very tough. New Orleans and Nichols. Keep me with those 2 teams.
Is that a Citadel plays in Southland, right?
No, they're in the Summit League.
Man.
Or no, not the Summit. They're in the SoCon. My bad. SoCon. All the S conferences.
Yeah, that's too much. Before we get going, do you want to plug where people can find you and how people can follow along with all the great content you're putting out?
Yes, sir. So on Twitter, mid_madness, and then also Lorensen Sports, NLORENSEN Sports.
Awesome. All right. So now all the housekeeping stuff out of the way. Just looking at the whole world of mid-majors, let's just dive into the meat of it right away. Who are you circling now on what? We're recording on February 28th, before March has even begun. Who are you circling that this team is dangerous?
Oh, I mean, there's a lot out there. Murray State's definitely one that everyone's going to be talking about. But the thing about them is they play all these games close. So if they don't take a little lead, if they aren't holding the lead on you or you're within like 6 points, 8 points within the last 10 minutes, they're going to lose. But the Mountain West, I always go to the Mountain West. You have Boise State, you have Wyoming. Those 2 teams are so deep. They're now both locks for the tournament. I mean, at the beginning of the season, no one was even looking at them. It's just so impressive how they're playing. You have Colorado State. David Roddy is an unreal big man. Of course, you got who else? St. Mary's. St. Mary's is a lock. They just beat Gonzaga on Saturday night. That was so impressive. They got so many guards on that team that are like insane. But conference tournament-wise, if you want to get some locks on that, I think Liberty should be a lock in the East, and they almost win it every single year.
Yeah, I like that.
I'm not the biggest Liberty guy, but Darius McGee is he's probably one of the best guards in the nation. He put up, I want to say, like 47 points on Saturday, and 16 of them may have been in overtime. And then in the America East, you got Vermont. Vermont, they run the table in that league pretty much every year, but you have UMBC every once in a while who will dabble in. But, I mean, I think they have like a 6-game lead in the conference. No one's really close. And then you got the Murrays and Gonzagas. And then in the NEC, Wagner's kind of been going downhill. They were a darling for a little while. But I think it's all Bryant's league now. They have Peter Kiss, who's a top scorer in the nation. So that starts tonight if you want to get your futures in. I like Bryant there.
Yeah, lock it in for the Northeast Conference. Everyone follows that one very closely. You talked a little bit about Vermont and those like smaller conferences. Last year we saw Colgate. I'm sad to say that I was on the Colgate train last year. I watched a lot of Patriot League basketball. I used to work for CBS, so I had to tune into all those sports network games, those fantastic Patriot League matchups. So I was really high on Colgate, and I don't know why. But now this season, is there a Colgate-esque team? That team that comes from that small conference, America East. Maybe it's one of them. Maybe it's Bryant out of the Northeast. Maybe it's Wagner. They get their stuff together and they go. Is there a team that's from a small conference that will get a lot of people to pick them as an upset, as like a trendy upset pick?
I mean, the real interesting thing about Colgate last year is they played like the same 4 teams, and then they were like 5 in the net ranking going into the tournament. So it was really interesting. But I want to say Princeton. I've been really high on Princeton since the offseason. They're up top of the Ivy League right now. They just clinched share the title. They're going to get it with Yale. They'll probably be like a 14 seed, just like Colgate was. They have Toussaint Wabon, if I'm saying his name right. He's down low. He's an English guy. He is unreal. Jalen Llewellyn's probably one of the best guards in the country. They have just like 3 really good guards, and then they have this. He's maybe like the 3rd or 4th man off the bench. What Elijah Barnes, that kid he's the ultimate glue guy. Princeton's a sneaky team right there that I feel like these people on CBS on Selection Sunday, they're going to be saying, "Oh, Princeton's going to go out and beat USC," a team like that, and
Yeah.
that's one of those low mid-major teams I think have a good chance.
Okay. I really like that. You mentioned Mountain West. I want to come back to the West Coast, whether it's the WCC, whether it's Mountain West, even if it's trying to think of another, maybe even the Big West. Who knows? The Gauchos out of Santa Barbara, they had a guy who was 7'4", a few years ago, and
Yeah, he's still there.
he's still there.
Amadou Sal.
Perfect. Is there who are you looking out of the West to really be a lock, either to win their conference tournament? Gonzaga doesn't count. I always bring this up with my co-host Bennett, and he always asks if Gonzaga counts because that's going to be his answer every time. But I'm really high on David Roddy in Colorado State, but maybe I'm wrong in that assumption. Is there another team out there that will knock them off, or someone in the WCC?
I mean, I really don't think you can go wrong with the top 9 teams in the Mountain West winning the Mountain West tournament. That league is so stacked. There's so many great players. You have Justin Bean at Utah State. Utah State will probably be a 7. You have Orlando Robinson at Fresno. They'll probably be a 6. UNLV has great guards. New Mexico has great guards. I think all those leagues are so competitive. You don't really, of course, Gonzaga with WCC, but you're not going to have another one of those leagues that are really locks. The Big West tournament's one of the ones that I'm really looking forward to because the top 5 teams in the league are all really good. They've beaten up on each other the last couple of years. But, I mean, I don't think there's a sure lock conference tournament-wise in all those. Even in the WAC, where, like, it's usually New Mexico State every year, they've added all these old Southland teams, Sam Houston State, Stephen F. Austin, Abilene Christian. And then you have, like, Seattle, who's really rose, and Grand Canyon's always been up there, and Utah Valley is starting to play really well. So what would usually be just a breeze to the finals is not a breeze anymore. So I think out of all the conferences, all the ones out west are really like open game.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to all of those. And all of those names you just listed in the WAC, I think like 4 of those have been trendy upsets as of late, whether it's Grand Canyon, Abilene Christian, probably a few others that I'm forgetting. Yeah. You mentioned Utah State, and I had a question written down before we started this podcast about Utah State specifically. Mm-hmm. They're a team to me that can win a game or two in the tournament, but they have to win their conference tournament at this point. Is there any other team out there that is a dangerous team, but they may have had a couple rough stretches? They're on the last 4 out or the next 4 out, so they really need to win their conference tournament. Probably a lot of A-10 teams. But then once they get into the tournament, they may be able to pull off a win or two.
Yeah, I mean, both BYU and the Bonnies are there. BYU, I don't know how they keep sticking around in the bubble. They lost Pacific a couple weeks, and they just keep sticking around. They're beating all these bottom-tier WCC teams that are staying up there. But, I mean, Alex Barcello is an insane guy, an insane player. So if he makes the tournament, they could make a trip the second weekend. The Bonnies, they have those 5 guys. They were all Ironmen. They played the whole game. I've been high on them since the preseason. I don't know if I'm too high on them anymore, but I would love for the A-10 to have more than one bid. Being a Duquesne guy growing up, they stink. But a team that's a sleeper in one of those leagues is Santa Clara. I don't really think – I mean, Gonzaga, of course, is probably going to win the tournament, but I believe Santa Clara is a 3 seed in the WCC tournament. So if they end up winning their quarterfinal against, I believe Portland's a 6 seed. So whoever Portland plays, and then they end up going and beating St. Mary's and making the final, I think they'll be a lock for the NIT. And if they upset Gonzaga, I think they could win a game in the NCAA tournament. It's not like Steve Nash, Santa Clara, because they have 2-3 big men and what's their coach's name? He was at NC State. I can't think of his name, but he's an amazing coach. They're one of those teams that are little sneaky team over there.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could pull that name out, I'd be very impressed with all the names you've thrown out here throughout. I now want to veer the conversation a little bit to Providence, if you're okay with me steering the ship over to the Friars, because quickly I just want to get your take. They're one of the luckiest teams in the country, or I probably shouldn't say one of the luckiest. According to Ken Palm, the luckiest team in the country. And they're now bracketology looking at about a 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
What are you expecting out of the Friars?
I mean, they're one of those teams. I was saying it like Boise State. Every time I watch Boise State, there's a game, maybe a week, where I think like, yeah, there's no chance they win this, and they prove me wrong every time. Providence is the same way. I mean, every time they play a game, like they really battled against Villanova. They had a good chance to win that game. What was that? What was the one where they went into triple overtime? It was Xavier. They came back
just recently, yeah.
Yeah, and they came back and fought by that. I mean, now they're Big East champions. But I also think that they could be one of those teams where people think really highly on them.
Yeah.
And they get a good 15 team or a good 15 seed, and the 15 seed could upset them. But I mean, it's honestly very impressive what Ed Cooley's done over there, and lots of respect.
Yeah, 100%. Bennett wanted me to talk about St. Bonaventure. You touched on it a little bit. You were high on them coming into the season. Where did the wheels fall off? When did they come back on? And if they make it to the tournament, will their Iron Man strategy hurt them in the long run?
I mean, it didn't help them in the tournament last year. So I was really high on them. I don't know if I should have been really high on them, but you could tell from the beginning of the season, that first game they played really close, and then they went down to Myrtle Beach and they really battled Boise State when Boise State wasn't what Boise State is already. And they just battled their way, but they ended up winning that tournament. And then right after that, it felt like the wheels fell off in late November, early December. And then I want to say it was like the middle of A10 play, they just started really picking it up again. But I mean, what they have going on there is impressive. It's going to be interesting what happens next year if their coach leaves or not, because they're going to have no one else. But I think that Ironman strategy is not really built for the long haul, especially playing these games every 2 days in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, 100%. And last question before I let you go here. Who are you most looking forward to watching in the conference tournament / the tournament, just from a mid-major perspective of this is appointment television. If you haven't watched them all season, you have to get to a television and watch this team.
Those two I mentioned earlier, I think Boise State and Wyoming. I mean, they're just both so deep. They have kids come off their bench who are insane. They can drain these threes. They are just like, they're going to be a sneaky 8-9 seed, like in Northern Iowa in 2011 with Ali Farokhmanesh. But they just have so many. They have like 6 Ali Farokhmaneshes, and they can go out and they can shoot the ball and they can grind you. Boise State is a top 10 defense in the country. So if they play a very good offensive team, they'll go down and they'll make it into a game. Every single one of these Mountain West games have been close the whole season. So even like next week, watch the Mountain West tournament. Every single one of those games outside of maybe a San Jose State game, and they should only play one game. They will be close games, and they're fun to watch.
Yeah, awesome. I think I was a year ahead on the Boise State hype train. I think in early December of last year, I tweeted something of I watched Derek Alston Jr., and he was just so fun to watch last season. And I tweeted, like, this is a Sweet 16 team, and then they didn't even make it. But now it's looking like they might be a Sweet 16 team. So I found it. So thank you so much for joining us, Nick. If you want to go ahead and plug some stuff again, by all means, this is your platform to share with the world of what you've been doing.
Yeah, thank you guys. Mid_Madness and M Lorensen Sports on Twitter. Just give me a follow.
Perfect. We appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.